Hey guys, welcome to our channel. So I'm not sure if I'm going to post this video right away, and it may end up changing because I may find something else in the meantime. You never know, I might post it, who knows. But this is it. Not the finale, obviously. I'm not done looking, done recording, but this is what we connect and what we know so far, and I'm going to start with the theory that my fiance actually came up with and connected some dots that even I'd missed, and it happened because we were looking at another video and I'd seen this model of like an infinite flat plane, like an Earth model, with all these little holes infinitely. I can't even show because it's infinite. And then you had your little sun and moon circle going around each one and an ice wall in between them all, and it went on and on and on. And I looked at that and thought, an infinite flat plane, yeah, that could almost work, except that looks too artificial. All right? And if you have something artificial, that means somebody had to make it, right? And if somebody had to make it, someone had to evolve somewhere on a functioning scale, a functioning model in order to make it. And then my fiance said, well, she asked me about how quantum mechanics worked, and I kind of explained an observer phenomenon, the double slit experiment. And I explained how particles act in waves and probability waves even, and then if someone observes them, they act like balls out of a pitching machine. And she said, well, what if you had it, what if you were infinite particles riding on an infinite particle wave with nobody around to observe it? And I had to think about that for a minute, but all of a sudden, your artificial stuff didn't need a creator, now did it? Because you would have a wave of probabilities. Some, and then in them waves of probabilities, you would have possibilities, and some possibilities would be more probable than other probabilities. And it would go on and on. So the less probable things would weed themselves out, and there would be fewer of those, and the more probable things would go on in a wave until somebody was able to observe it. But if there was nobody around to observe it, and that's the other thing, time isn't a factor here either, because on the quantum level, everything happens at once, past, present, future, it's all happening right now. Which means, unless I'm way off, if somebody was around to observe it, it already would have happened. And so you'd ride around on the infinite probability wave, and nobody's around to observe it. It goes infinite, it goes on, and when you die here, your energy transfers there. And if the more probable possibility was an infinite flat plane that consciousness could exist on that didn't spin, then that is what it would be. It wouldn't need anybody to make it. It wouldn't need to make sense because it's just an infinite probability wave. Oh, I don't know if I'm explaining this right. But what about everything else? What about where does the fake moon landing tie in? The fake 9/11, the blurring the line between real and fake. Where does the prescription drugs come in to try to drug everybody? Why? Well, they're covering up The Mandela Effect. That's right. You guessed it, guys. The Mandela Effect is what they're trying to cover up because it's the only real thing in all this, right? As you travel through the infinite possibility wave or the infinite probability wave, you come across different outcomes. Therefore, you got the Mandela Effect, but they don't want you to know that's real. So they blur the line between fake and real. They drug people. They tell you you got Alzheimer's, dementia, whatever they got to do to cover it up. Because if people knew that, some people would think there would be no consequences for their actions. But they would be wrong. They would be wrong. If you, for instance, tried to hang yourself while, say, I or any of us may perceive them as dead, what's going to happen to them from their perception is going to be breaking their neck. Somebody's going to cut them down. They're going to be okay, but it's going to suck because they got a broken neck, right? But we don't see that, but they do. It's all about perception. So if you do stuff that is messed up, it's not as if there's no consequences because you just carry on in the infinite probability wave. And then when you die, you transfer over again because it's infinite. It doesn't stop and it doesn't end. Nobody there to observe it. Now, does that mean there's no gods, no devils? Well, not necessarily. I mean, there are possibilities within the probability waves. I would say they're less probable than maybe more probable. And therefore, you would probably go through less realities that these things were real. And even if they were, you can't contain a quantum particle in the way that they, heaven and hell, you can't contain a quantum particle in that way because it's fluid. It's constantly shifting in and out of phase. You couldn't just contain this thing in a fire pit. That's not how quantum particles work. So while you may drift in and out of realities and other, and them other reality bubbles, and people with more technology, are they gods? No, they're people with more technology, races with more technology. That's what you got, right? I mean, a primitive species might worship them as a god, but does that make them a god? No. No. Would it make me a god if I came across a primitive race and I had this technology and they were impressed? Of course it doesn't. I could pretend I was. They could even write books about me, but would it make me one? No. No. So they may be real in some possibility lines, but probably less probable. So are they fake? Again, they blur the line between real and fake, where once they were worshiping something real, they now may be worshiping something fake. Because they blurred those lines. They've changed everything. They've divided, distract and divide. That's the other good one that they're doing that we're trying to tie in here. The distraction and division, right? Because if you can distract the people that see the changes, the people who know what's going on, and you can distract them and divide them on something, the thing I said I'd never mention again rhymes with Ural and Lanny, because I ain't saying it again, but we all know what I'm talking about. All right? Distraction and division. And, psychologists will tell you things that how your brain works wrong and you don't understand. Yeah, right. I buy that. So it ties all back in together, and death, again, we perceive other people's death. I don't think we perceive our own. And there's that. And, in an infinite probability wave, there's no telling what people could perceive. Like, even you hear stories of people coming back from the dead and all these sorts of things, and there's no telling what they perceived. I mean, there's probably a realm in between the waves. And I suppose if somehow someone could get outside of the particle wave, the infinite probability wave itself, and observe it, that would change things. Maybe that's what they're working on. And by the way, I think these quantum computers have a lot to do with things too. I think they're changing things as they make calculations, and maybe they're doing it on purpose, maybe they're not. If they're doing it on purpose, it's probably more to confuse, to put more effects out there to try to confuse people, um, trying to discredit them even. And because, of course, we all know that's the way it's always been. So you see all these things, and that's the way they've always been. It isn't real, right? Of course not. Mandela Effect isn't real. The moon landing is. Right, guys? Come on. I see their game. I hope everybody else does too. And trying to move this thing along, and I hope I've done all right, but infinite or quantum particles riding on an infinite wave of quantum particles with nobody there to observe them, and the government would like to cover that up. And Project Bluebeam, yeah, holograms in the sky, blurring the line again between real and fake, and trying to dictate to you what's real and what's fake. And if they can do that, they can cover up anything they want. They can cover up the Mandela effect. They can cover up the infinite quantum wave that we all ride on. At least I think we do right now. Again, the way science works, the way I work, if I find something that blows my theory out of the water, I'll start over and I'll be the first one making a video saying, nope, this theory's gone. But right now, that's the theory I'm going with. It all ties together, every bit of it. And if I missed anything, hopefully I'll catch it and I'll have to redo the video. But that's it for now, guys. You can thumb me up if you agree with me, or do a little research and see if you agree. And you can thumb me right down if you think I'm full of it, which I assure you, in my opinion, I'm not. And in our opinion, we're not. So it's what makes the most sense to us. It suddenly means nothing has to actually make sense as long as it's a probability. So anyway, that's it for now, guys. Thanks for your thumbs up, thumbs down, likes. I said that in that. Comments and subscriptions. And of course, we want to know what you guys think for some feedback. And of course, this isn't the end of Mandela quantum effects. That this means there's going to be an infinite number of effects to find. And we'll be right there to find them, and anything else we think connects to this, we'll be putting it out there. And that's all for now, guys. And thanks, and have a great rest of your evening.